Welcome to Focus on Scholarship. I'm Carrie Cooper, Dean of Libraries, and your host for today's session. The Graduate School and EKU libraries have a shared goal of bringing focus and awareness to the scholarly and creative achievements of our academic community. Our guest today is Stephen Richter, Assistant Professor in Eastern's Department of Biological Sciences. Dr. Stephen Richter joined Eastern's faculty in biology in 2005 after graduating with a PhD in zoology from the University of Oklahoma. His research interests are ecology, conservation and evolution of amphibians and reptiles, conservation biology, and wetland ecology. He has 2 publications this year and was recently awarded a $383,000 grant with the biology colleague Dr. David Brown for their work with the Kentucky wetlands. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
Tell us about MICA, the Molecular Ecology and Conservation in Amphibians Lab, and how you involve undergraduates in research.
Sure. So that's my research lab, and currently it's composed of one environmental technician who was a previous graduate student of mine, and so she was hired by David Brown and myself for our wetland grant purposes, and there are 6 graduate students, a couple that just began this year, others that are finishing this semester and summer, and then about 7 undergraduate students. Again, there is a mixture of freshmen, sophomores, and some that are graduating soon. And as a group, our research focuses on land use change, which is humans as they continue to encroach on natural landscapes. Natural habitat is lost and fragmented, and so we're looking to understand how communities of species, groups of species, and individual species respond to these landscape changes. And so natural communities over time, evolutionary time, have come to a certain balance. And so as their habitat changes and the landscape changes, that balance is somewhat disrupted, and even the loss of 1 or 2 species or the addition of a couple of non-natives can really change community dynamics. And
Very interesting.
Different aspects of land use change.
So the pictures on the webpage looks like everybody's having a really great time in this lab.
They are.
Yeah. So tell me, how does one sign up if you're a student for the lab experience?
Well, there are a couple of ways. Some students self-identify and come and talk with me about research or email. Others I've met through courses, but also in biology we have a undergraduate coordinator. It's Dr. Nick Sanangelo, and his position, part of his duties, is to meet with students, to make students aware that research is possible, and then to help them to locate a faculty mentor or graduate student that closely matches their interests. And so there are a few ways of going about it.
That's great. That's great. You've been such an advocate at Eastern for involving more students in fieldwork and research. Why is this important to you?
Well, it goes back to really my first year in college. Through my life, I wanted to be a doctor, so I was a pre-med biology major at Berry College. And I got into college, into my courses, and didn't have the focus that I thought I should have. And some of my friends were involved in research, and so I became involved with one of the projects, went down to Florida for a summer and worked in the Florida scrub with a lizard species. Got really into it and realized that was possible as a career, and really it gave me focus and drive, and my grades went up. I became more of a serious student, and it really helped me to focus and get that experience. And so I worked with about 6 faculty on different projects, and it wasn't until as a graduate student I realized how important that was for me professionally in my development, and in becoming a faculty member at EKU. Not until then did I realize the importance of my research experience as an undergraduate on the faculty mentor in their research program. And so it's a good example of how student research is mutualistic and collaborative, and how student-focused research programs should be.
And it really changed your whole career path.
And it did change my whole career path. So
thanks for sharing that story. Talk about how your interest in Kentucky's wetlands and the grant that you and David Brown were awarded from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Kentucky Division of Water. Tell us about that.
Okay, sure. So I've been, since my master's days, working in wetlands with amphibians, and then moving into Kentucky, really getting involved more so here because we're one of the leading states in wetland loss. Over 80% of our wetlands have been lost. And right now, per the Clean Water Act, as wetlands are taken and permitted, they're required the folks involved are required to mitigate at a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every acre of wetland loss, 2 acres have to be replaced. But we don't really have a method of assessing the quality of the wetlands. And so the goals of this research is to develop the method with multiple state and federal agencies. We have a technical team that works to develop it. And then David Brown and my primary goal is to conduct the research collecting biological data at wetlands and correlating scores on the method to intensive biological data to ensure that the method does reflect true ecological condition of wetlands.
And so will in some way this help prioritize where the needs are in terms of replacement?
It will.
Okay.
So wetlands that are high quality may not be impacted, or if they are, the mitigation cost will be higher than 2-to-1, and ones that score less may not have as important a function, will score lower. And wetlands, they're really misunderstood as probably a big part of why they've been lost, and so they serve really important functions for humans in terms of flood control, filtering of water, providing water in times of drought, removal of sediments and contaminants. So it's a really important process. It's an important method for Kentucky wetlands.
Thank you. Congratulations on your publications this past year. I know you had a 2009 article in Copia, and you had 2010 articles in Herpetological Review in the Journal of the Kentucky Academy of Science. I'm curious, do you have a routine that you follow when you're writing for publication?
I had a really great routine as a graduate student because I'm a morning person, and so I would have 4 to 5 hour morning blocks to really completely immerse in research and writing, and then I would work on more mindless things in the afternoon. Then beginning a job as a new assistant professor, things obviously changed, and so I'm still working in my 6th year. I'm still working on getting good at writing, and when I have 2 hour blocks of time. I don't have the luxury of those large blocks of time, and so trying to carve time for writing is very critical, but can be difficult.
Stephen, how does your scholarship and service impact your teaching?
In quite a few ways. So in teaching courses that you get into conceptual discussions and discussions about theories, you really need to incorporate case studies to apply what you're discussing with the students so they can make a connection. And if you're connecting your own research as that case study, especially in Kentucky, I can see a real difference in how students engage in the discussions. And I teach courses that aren't within my research expertise necessarily and use case studies from others and really see a difference in the students. Also, in doing research, we read the literature and keep up with the literature, and in doing so, are able to pull in current literature into courses. And students love gee-whiz information and hearing about current research. Another is in my Ecology for Teachers class, which is the class that's geared toward students that are striving to become teachers, science teachers in middle schools and elementary schools. We have a wetland and watershed unit, and so we talk about wetlands in the classroom. We go out to Kirksville Elementary School, which is close by where a wetland has been built, and they see how useful wetlands on school grounds can be for teaching. They go out and collect some data. We capture some turtles and snakes and things that are there, and they collect data. And when they're done, the graduate students that I bring with me, my graduate students, work with the 5th grade class. They come out, the graduate students teach the class, and the students in my class are able to observe that. And then the final, probably the most important link to it is that research with undergraduate students is teaching. The majority of time a student spends during their project is learning, and the majority of time I spend with them is teaching them. And so up until the point of data collection, really that's when the research begins. And before that it's inefficient, but informal teaching, developing critical thinking skills, teaching them research methods. It's that connection that I referred to earlier where I really developed professionally through faculty mentors, and I know that my faculty mentors benefited in their research program by working with the students. So we're working to institutionalize research at EKU, and so it's really important that we provide more support for faculty, especially in that informal teaching, because it's not part of their formal teaching load.
Sure. It sounds great. Lots of fun happening.
Oh, yes.
That's it for this edition of Focus on Scholarship. I'd like to thank our guest, Stephen Richter. EKU Libraries has access to Stephen's article online through our subscription to Bio1. Bio1 contains full-text access to 167 high-impact journals in the biosciences. Please join us next time as we continue to raise awareness and celebrate the scholarly and creative achievements of Eastern Kentucky University's faculty and staff.